Look at the painting. Napoleon on a rearing white stallion, cloak whipping an alpine wind, arm outstretched toward Italy. Calm, commanding, inevitable. Jacques-Louis David painted it in 1801. Napoleon commissioned it himself. He specified exactly how he wanted to look. He told David, "Calm on a fiery horse." It is one of the most recognizable images in Western history. It is almost entirely fiction. When Napoleon actually crossed the Alps in May of 1800, he rode a mule, a sure-footed, unglamorous mule, guided by a local peasant. He wore a plain gray overcoat. The crossing nearly failed. The artillery had to be dragged through hollowed-out pine logs. He arrived in Italy cold, exhausted, and behind schedule. None of that made it into the painting. Napoleon Bonaparte was born on August 15, 1769, in Ajaccio, Corsica. The island had been sold to France by Genoa just 1 year before his birth. He was, technically, French, but barely. He spoke with a Corsican accent his entire life. His classmates mocked him for it. At the military academy in Paris, he was the outsider, the provincial, the almost foreigner. He never forgot that. The French Revolution did not just change France. It opened a door that had never existed before. For 1,000 years, where you were born determined where you would die. Nobility was inherited. Power was blood. A Corsican boy with an accent had a ceiling. The revolution removed the ceiling. In the chaos, in the violence, in the complete collapse of the old order, one thing became suddenly, terrifyingly possible. A man of ability could rise to the very top. Napoleon understood this faster than almost anyone alive. His first major command came in Italy in 1796. He was 26 years old and largely unknown. What followed was a campaign of breathtaking audacity. In 12 months, he defeated 4 separate Austrian armies, forced 11 armistices, and extracted enough wealth from northern Italy to fund the French government. But what he understood, what separated him from every other general, was that the campaign had to be a story. Victories needed witnesses. Witnesses needed words. Words needed to reach Paris. He wrote his own dispatches. He controlled what the newspapers printed. He sent back the narrative he wanted France to read. Egypt was the first great failure. He could not hide with a battle. In 1798, he took 38,000 men to Egypt. The strategic logic was sound. Cut Britain's route to India. Build a French empire in the east. The British Navy destroyed his fleet at the Battle of the Nile. His army was stranded. Disease killed thousands. The campaign in Syria collapsed. He had no way out and no path to victory. So he left. He abandoned his army in Egypt, slipped past the British blockade, and sailed back to France. He arrived to a hero's welcome. How did a general who abandoned his army become a hero? Because Napoleon reached France before the news did. He controlled the story. By the time accurate accounts of Egypt arrived, he had already written the version France would believe. A glorious expedition, ancient monuments, scientific discovery. A general who had carried the torch of civilization into the East. The army he left behind surrendered to the British 2 years later. He never mentioned them again. On the 18th of Brumaire, November 9th, 1799, Napoleon overthrew the French government. It was not clean. He was supposed to give a speech to the Council of 500. Instead, he walked into the chamber, and the deputies began screaming at him. Some grabbed him. His brother had to rescue him. The coup nearly collapsed in that room. But his soldiers were outside. And when the deputies were driven out at bayonet point, Napoleon was left standing. That was enough. By morning, he was first consul of France, effectively its ruler. David painted the coronation in 1807. It took 3 years. The canvas is 30 feet wide, 231 individual figures. Every face is a portrait. Every costume is documented. Napoleon did not crown himself in a quiet ceremony. He invited the Pope. Pius VII traveled all the way from Rome. And then, at the critical moment, Napoleon took the crown from the Pope's hands and placed it on his own head. David painted the moment just after Napoleon crowning Josephine, the Pope seated behind him, blessing what he could not stop. Napoleon reviewed the finished painting and said, "I take off my hat to you, David." Austerlitz, December 2nd, 1805. It is considered by military historians to be the most perfectly executed battle in history. Napoleon feigned weakness on his right flank, drew the Austrian and Russian forces in, then shattered their center. In less than 9 hours, he destroyed an Allied army of 85,000 men. The Holy Roman Empire, a political structure that had existed for 1,000 years, ceased to exist within months. He dictated his bulletin from the battlefield while the dead were still being counted. The bulletin described the battle exactly as he wanted it remembered. It was distributed across Europe within days. At his peak, Napoleon controlled territory from Spain to the borders of Russia. His brothers sat on the thrones of Spain, Westphalia, and Naples. His stepson ruled Italy. His marshals governed half of Europe. The paintings from this period show a man at ease with destiny, calm, imperial, inevitable. What they do not show is what was happening in Spain. In Spain, Napoleon's myth met something it could not defeat. Not an army, a population. The Spanish guerrilla, the original use of that word, was a war without front lines, without uniforms, without surrender. French soldiers were ambushed on roads, murdered in villages, killed in their sleep. Goya painted it, not for Napoleon, not for glory. He painted it for the record. His paintings have no heroes, only the machinery of what occupation actually looks like. 250,000 French soldiers died in Spain over 6 years. Napoleon called it his Spanish ulcer. He could not paint over Goya. Russia was not a miscalculation. It was an act of arrogance on a civilizational scale. In June of 1812, Napoleon invaded with 680,000 men, the largest army ever assembled in European history. By December, fewer than 100,000 crossed back out. The Russian winter killed them. The Russian strategy of retreat and scorched earth killed them. Typhus killed them. Starvation killed them. He entered Moscow to find it burning, set alight by the Russians themselves rather than surrender it. He waited 5 weeks for a peace offer that never came. Then he turned around. He was exiled twice. The first time, to Elba, a small island off the Italian coast. He arrived in May of 1814 and immediately began governing it. He reformed the island's administration, built roads, reorganized its military. He could not stop being Napoleon even on an island 12 miles wide. After 10 months, he escaped, sailed back to France with 1,000 men. The army sent to stop him joined him instead. He ruled for 100 days. Then Waterloo. Then the second exile, St. Helena, a volcanic rock in the South Atlantic, 3 weeks by ship from anywhere. He would never leave. At St. Helena, he had 6 years and nothing but time. He used every hour of it. He dictated his memoirs. He revised his campaigns. He reframed every defeat as someone else's betrayal. He constructed, with enormous, deliberate care, the version of Napoleon Bonaparte that he wanted history to remember. He called it the St. Helena Memorial, It became one of the most widely read books in 19th century Europe. He was still controlling the narrative, from a rock in the South Atlantic, after everything. He died on May 5, 1821. The official cause was stomach cancer. Some historians have argued arsenic poisoning. The debate has never fully closed. He was 51 years old. His final words, according to those present, were, "France, the army, Josephine." Whether he actually said them, no one can be certain. They are exactly the words he would have chosen. Here is what Napoleon actually left behind. 3 million dead in the Napoleonic Wars. Some historians estimate 6 million. The numbers are still debated because the scale was too large to count precisely. The Napoleonic Code is still the legal foundation of France, Quebec, Louisiana, and dozens of other legal systems worldwide. The first modern meritocratic military, the template for the modern nation-state, and the myth. The perfectly constructed, obsessively maintained, carefully distributed myth of a man who was always calm on a fiery horse. The painting still hangs in the Château de Malmaison outside Paris. Napoleon on the rearing horse. The Alps, the outstretched arm. You know now that it is a fabrication, that the real crossing was cold and unglamorous and nearly failed, that the man on the mule bore almost no resemblance to the man on the canvas. And yet the painting is the one you remember. He knew you would. That was always the point.